come down here and I'll actually do the cross-examination. I shouldn't say cross, I should say the adverse direct examination. Mr. Sally, you are the site safety foreman, is that correct?
Yes.
Is it true, sir, that you were the site safety foreman of this project that was going up in Midtown Manhattan?
Yes.
When we say this project, can we agree this was a large construction project?
Yes, it was.
A skyscraper that was about 50 stories tall?
Yes.
When I speak of you as being the site safety inspector, you were the overall inspector in that building, true?
That's correct.
Now, in fairness to you, sir, wouldn't it be correct to say that you couldn't be all places at all times?
That's true.
After all, you had 50 stories, you could only be some of the places at some of the times, true?
That's true.
But the one thing that you had to be concerned with at all times is the safety of the workers, true?
Yes.
Can we agree that if you were not concerned with the safety of the workers, that would be improper?
No, that was my job.
Can we agree that that would be flat out wrong if you were not concerned with the safety of the workers?
I would
Just
agree.
on my objection, Judge, and plaintiff lawyer, I think your questions are bordering on being argumentative at this point. Even though the judge is going to permit you to leave.
Fair enough. Let me ask you this, sir. Were you the site safety inspector?
Yes, I was.
Can we agree with this, sir, that there are certain competing interests at any construction site?
Yes.
Well, for example, if I were to say that there are time concerns that anyone would have at a construction project like this, we can agree on that, true?
Yes.
And we can agree that there are concerns such as trying to make sure that the job is timely finished, right?
Yes.
Can we agree, though, that no matter what the time constraints are, that you must be concerned with safety?
That's my job, yes.
So that if we were to balance these two different concerns, safety on the one hand and speed on the other, safety always wins, true?
For me, it does, yes.
And when we say for you it does, wouldn't that be true with any foreman that was on the job?
It should be, yes.
I notice you use the word should. If it's not, would you agree with me that that would be a departure from safety standards?
They should be concerned with the worker safety. I would agree.
And my question is, if they're not, it would be a departure, true?
I would agree, yes.
Now, one of the things that you do is you have meetings, true?
Yes.
These meetings actually review with the different workers at the site what must be done, true?
To a degree, yes, with the foreman.
Understood. In other words, you speak with the foreman, and then you expect the foreman to speak to the other workers, true?
Exactly.
When you speak with the foreman, though, we can agree you at all times stress safety, right?
Yes.
When you stress safety, would it be correct to say that there are things that you're more concerned with than others?
Yes.
For example, certain equipment that's used at a construction site, true?
Right.
You want to make sure, for example, if scaffolding is used, that certain criteria are met. Fair enough?
I want to make sure the scaffold is adequate for the job.
Now, I notice you using the phrase adequate for the job, if I can say that. Adequate for the job means safe for the job, right?
Safe for the job, yes.
So whether I use the word safe or adequate, they're synonyms to you, one and the same, right?
Yes, they are.
Now, let's talk about scaffolding itself. There are certain regulations when it comes to scaffolding that you're familiar with, right?
Yes, I am.
You've been familiar with this for many years, right?
That's true.
Tell the court and jury how long you've been a site safety inspector.
20 years.
During that 20-year period, would it be fair to say that you familiarized yourself with the local rules,
Yes.
with the state rules,
Yes.
the industrial code,
Yes.
the New York labor law,
Yes.
and you're also familiar with something known as the OSHA standards, correct?
That's correct.
Tell the court and jury what the OSHA standards are.
It's federal standards, Occupational Safety and Health Act to govern safety on job sites for workers.
Can we agree that whether it's federal, whether it's state, or whether it's local, safety must always be maintained when it comes to scaffolding?
I would agree with that.
No exceptions, true?
No exceptions.
In fact, if there are exceptions, that would be improper, right?
I would agree.
And in fact, these rules and regulations actually show you the appropriate ways of making sure that scaffolds are set up safely, right?
Yes.
Those rules are there to protect workers, right?
Yes.
You know that those rules actually applied during the time that this construction project was going up, true?
Yes.
So that there were rules that were in effect on April 26th, 2009, the day of this accident, right?
Yes.
You know, don't you, that this accident happened at a specific location in that building, true?
Right.
You were familiar with different types of scaffolding before this, right?
Yes.
So for example, you were familiar with something known as a Baker scaffold, right?
Yes.
Baker scaffold is basically a steel structure, 4 support beams, true?
Yes.
And at the end of each of the support beams, there are wheels, right? You understand that the wheels must be locked in place, right?
Yes.
There's a reason that the wheels must be locked in place, true?
Yes.
Stability, right?
So it doesn't move.
Stability.
Yes.
And in fact, what you're trying to do is to ensure that it doesn't move one way or another, correct?
Right.
Would you agree with me that it's not just to be secure at the bottom of the wheels, but that the foundation must be strong enough to support the entire structure, correct?
To support people working on it? Is that what you're asking?
Let's just talk about the scaffold itself before we even talk about people being on it.
You mean, you want to be secure so the scaffold doesn't fall over? Yes.
I want to know this, sir. The beams have to be capable of supporting the structure itself, true?
That's true.
After all, if you didn't do that, it would be worthless. Fair enough?
That's true.
Something you wouldn't allow.
No.
Something you would tell every single foreman on a job, don't let that happen.
Right.
If you did let that happen, that too would be a departure, correct?
If I didn't tell the foreman that, yes.
And in fact, if structures were set up that were not secure, that would be improper, true?
Well, it depends on what you mean by not secure. Secure for what purpose, or secure in general?
Well, let's focus on securing structures. When we talk about scaffolds, if we use doors instead of metal beams, doors that open freely, very much like the doors that just opened just now, would you agree with me that if those are capable of swinging, that doesn't provide for the best stability?
They're not as secure as if they're fixed, I would agree.
Are you suggesting in any way, shape, or form that doors that swing are appropriate as a base for a scaffold?
It depends on the application. The one you're talking about, I think, was adequate for the circumstances.
I haven't even gotten there yet, have I, sir?
No,
In fact, you're anticipating my questions?
I guess so.
Did anyone tell you to guess?
Look at me.
Well, I'm just guess.
Yes, I can see
You
what
took it on yourself to guess?
Yes, I took it on myself to guess.
All right, let's do it this way, sir. When I ask you questions, I'm going to ask you to answer without guessing. Can you do that for us?
Yes.
Did you ever instruct one single foreman? Swinging doors can be adequate as a base for a scaffold.
I never had that specific conversation, no.
Are you aware of one single rule or regulation in OSHA or any safety rule that says swinging doors, that's what we want for foundations of scaffolds?
No, I'm not aware of any regulations.
So when you say adequate for the job, don't you mean swinging doors would be inadequate for the job?
No, I don't.
You're sticking with that.
Yes.
So let's focus a little bit further. You're certainly familiar with what they call braces on scaffolds, correct?
Of course, yes.
Braces are mechanisms by which we can stabilize a scaffold, true?
That's true.
And certainly something that can prevent movement of the base of a scaffold, right?
That's right.
I want you to assume this for purposes of my question. I want you to assume that there are swinging doors that can swing freely out like this. But they're not fixed doors like this. Let's assume they're made of plywood. And assume further that they're 12 feet tall and 4 feet wide.
Okay.
You know I'm speaking about the exact doors that were in effect on this
Yes,
project, right?
Yes,
And that's what you were anticipating before, correct?
that's correct.
Let's assume further that there are boards coming across. The very top of this, 12 feet up, there are boards, right?
Right.
2 planks. If I speak about the planks themselves, those planks have to be inspected, true? Before they're used.
Inspected, to see if they're safe?
To see if they're fit for scaffolding.
Yes.
In fact, they can't be painted, right?
No, they can't be painted.
Because you want to check the grain on them, right?
Right.
They can't have saw cuts in them, true?
That's true.
They can't have holes in them, right?
No, they cannot.
They have to be able to support the load, right?
That's right.
And what is done, I want you to assume further, is that the boards are placed right on top of these doors. And I want you to assume further that not one nail is used, that not one screw is used, that nothing is used to hold them down. Let's assume that for just a moment.
Okay.
Would that be something that you would consider to be, quote unquote, to borrow your words, adequate for the job?
Under those circumstances, yes.
Now let's go a step further, since you're telling us that that's adequate for the job, and certainly that wouldn't serve the purpose of preventing injury, would it?
I'm
In
not
other
sure
words,
the question.
you're saying that having planks across doors that can move is adequate.
Yes.
And obviously, That's the way to ensure that workers won't get hurt, right?
Well, and that and a warning not to bump into them or walk through the doorway.
Did I say anything about that? Rick?
No, but,
Once again, you're anticipating my questions.
okay.
Once again, you're guessing and assuming things, right?
No, you're asking if it's adequate. I don't think you're taking all the facts into account.
Let's give you one more fact. How's that?
Okay.
Let's talk about putting cinder blocks on top of the boards, on top of the doors. Do you ever teach the foreman, this is the way we want you to do it?
No.
Would you agree with me that would be out and out absurd to do it that way?
No, I would not agree with that.
So you're saying it would be a good thing to do, right?
I think it would be adequate under the circumstances.
Tell me something. Are you aware of any code in this entire country that says that is, quote unquote, to borrow your words, adequate under the circumstances?
I am not aware of any code.
Did you just create this one here for us?
I don't think it's necessarily code matter.
I see. So in other words, when scaffolds are in the code and they don't comply with what's in the code, you don't think it's part of the code anymore.
Objection.
I'll withdraw that. Let's go a little bit further. The cinder blocks are on top of the boards, right?
Yes.
Are you aware of anything, any code, any place that says the paperweight method is a good way to secure these scaffolds in place?
I am not aware.
But indeed, that's exactly what was done here, right?
Well, they were using the weight of the, yes, they were using the weight of the cinder blocks to hold the boards in place.
So what we're really doing is I'm saying the paperweight method. We'll keep these heavy concrete blocks up top, and that's a paperweight, right?
In a sense, yes.
How much do the cinder blocks weigh each?
25 to 35 pounds.
I want you to assume further that there is nothing, not one securing brace, piece of tape, tie down, anything holding those cinder blocks in place. It's your position that's adequate for the job as well?
Under the circumstances, yes, it was adequate.
And of course, that's the way you protect the workers, right?
Well, on that, you warn them not to walk through there.
So, in other words, as long as you warn them, the hell with the way it's made. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that if they're doing something to get the window in place, and you tell a guy not to walk through there, and he does it anyway, it was adequate for what they were doing at the time.
Let's assume that he was told completely, don't come through here no matter what. I want to focus on the scaffold, though.
Okay.
Your position is when you have doors that can swing freely, with a board going across, with cinder blocks on top, that's adequate for the job. Is that it?
It was adequate for this job, yes.
Wouldn't you agree with me that it would be a complete departure for you to instruct others that this is the proper way of setting up a scaffold?
I would not instruct them to do it this way.
Let me stop you there. There are reasons you would not instruct them about that, correct?
Yes.
And one of the reasons you would not instruct them about that is because you, sir, in fairness to you, you're concerned about safety, right?
Yes.
So that if you were to take a look at that scaffold, when you're doing an inspection, we can agree that if it was up to you, you would say, no way, no how. True?
That's true. I would have told them to change the scaffold if I saw it.
Knowing that you would say, no way, no how, you don't expect the same of them. Is that it?
Well, given the job they were doing, it was adequate at the time, as long as they had someone warning not to walk through it.
You would instruct them to do it that way?
If they were going to do it that way, I would have instructed them to make sure nobody walked through and bumped into the doors.
You don't know what was said, correct?
What was said?
You weren't there as a witness.
No, I was not.
So you have to rely on what others are saying happened, correct?
Yes.
So if we assume that the plaintiff is telling the truth, that he wasn't giving those warnings, your entire position falls, correct?
Well, I would also think the plaintiff has common sense and can see not to walk through the area as well.
I see. Is that what the labor law is all about? We don't have to even follow these rules because we rely on common sense? Is that what they're saying?
Objection, he's not an attorney.
When you instruct your foreman, do you say, you know what, we're going to count on the workers' common sense all the time, so let's forget about the labor law. Is that what you say, sir?
That's not what I said.
You would never do that, would you?
I would not.
Because that would be totally improper. True?
I would have rather they could secure differently.
And the reason you'd rather it be secured differently is because you happen to follow the rule, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. True?
I believe in that.
Do you also believe in the House of Cards approach to scaffolds?
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Let me help you out.
Yeah.
You're familiar with a House of Cards, right?
Yes.
So that if you put the top card on, the weight of the top card is actually holding the card below, and the card below that, and so on.
Yes.
That's the way to set up a scaffold, right?
No, it's not.
That would be completely improper. True?
Using cards?
Let's assume we use cinder blocks, sir. Is that better?
It was adequate for what they were doing at the time, just one shot temporary window installation.
I recognize you were kidding when you say using cards, right?
Yes,
Because obviously, if you made scaffolds out of cards and then tried to put something on top of it,
it wouldn't work.
it might be fatal, right?
It wouldn't work bad.
Be bad, right?
Very bad.
Okay, so when we use cinder blocks, it's a good thing to do, though, right?
Under the circumstances it was. It's not the ideal way I wish to do it, but under the circumstances it was adequate.
So now, knowing this, you would agree with me that as an inspector, you would have never done it that way.
I would,
You would never have allowed it to be done that way had you known it.
had I known it, I would not have allowed it.
In fact, you would agree with me it would be a safety departure had you known it to allow it to continue.
It would have been a departure from me. I would have stopped it. I would have made sure to do differently.
Thank you, sir. Now, to follow up on that just a little bit, we can agree, though, that when we take a look at what happens, one of the reasons you inspect is to try and prevent accidents from happening, right?
Yes,
Regardless of warnings that are given elsewhere, true?
that's true.
Because we can't be sure if they were ever given, right?
That's true.
Now, the inspections don't just take place daily, correct?
The safety inspections for the building?
Safety inspections don't just take place daily, correct?
No, they did. They play almost consistently.
Well, can we agree that it's a violation of the labor law if they're not done before every shift?
Objection.
I don't know if I could agree with that.
Is it your practice, sir, if we talk about your custom and practice, to ensure when you speak with the foreman that it be done before every shift?
A safety inspection?
Safety inspection.
I don't know if I tell the foreman she's done before every shift, but I just tell them generally to keep safety in mind.
Are you aware, sir, as to whether or not the labor law of the state of New York, in addition to the OSHA standards, makes it completely improper to set cinder blocks that are unsecured on top of boards?
I'm not aware of any law.
All right, one answer, it's been sustained. I withdraw it. Let's just focus a little bit more, sir. Here on this case, you know an individual was injured, correct? There's no question that a board fell from a height.
That's what I guess.
Had you seen it, you never would have allowed that to exist.
I would have changed it.
Do you expect the same of workers that are foremen as you expect of yourself? Take your time.
I mean, I understand why they did it.
I'm just asking you whether or not you expect that, sir. I'm not asking for an explanation. Do you expect the same of workers such as foremen as you would expect from yourself? Either you do or you don't.
No, not necessarily.
And the reason you don't is because you don't hold them to the same standards that you live by, true?
I'm a 20-year trained safety personnel, so yes.
Do you actually investigate how often these foremen are trained?
No, I do not.
Do you ever ask?
If it's a new guy who I haven't seen, I will ask, but usually I don't.
Do you actually go over and tell them, when you see scaffolds, I want you to check it from the bottom to the top?
Have I said it to foreman? Yes, I have.
And in fact, if you were to take a look at a door that's just swinging wide open, you would say to them, let me tell you something, this is not what we want in a job like this. True?
If I had seen it, I would have said it.
Because it would be a complete and utter departure from safety standards. Fair enough, according to you.
It was adequate for these circumstances. I wouldn't consider it a complete and utter departure like you said.
All right, so let's leave out the complete and utter departure. Let's just say departure. Fair enough?
No, I would not agree with that. It was adequate for the circumstances they were using it for.
Is this the way you would want it to be done from now on?
No, it's not.
And the reason it wouldn't be is because it could injure someone. Fair enough?
It could injure someone. Yes.
Exactly what you're trying to prevent. Am I right?
Well, I would also hope that they would warn people not to go through there as well.
I notice you keep trying to get that in there, right? Is that right, sir?
Well, I think it's a fact that you just don't want to talk about
I assume it to be true.
it. Okay.
Now, I'm also saying you don't know that for a fact, though, right?
I don't know that for a fact.
So we don't know what was said or what wasn't said, right?
That's true.
But the reason we make sure the scaffold is safe no matter what is we don't have to get involved in any argument like that. True? True? You can answer.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. No further questions.